Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here. It's Monday, the 7th day of March 2022, and you've tuned in to the off-season edition of the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. It is going to be a busy one today. We've got a lot to talk about, as you see in the red there. I'm going to take a look at the ECMWF seasonal guidance that has come out. The first one where we really get a peek into the hurricane season. The next one that we see in April, that'll be a pretty defining moment, I think. But already the seeds getting planted for what will probably be another busy season for the Atlantic, as it looks like we're going to hold on to that La Niña for the third year in a row. Pretty unusual to have that. We'll take a look at a few other things, a few tweets from people. Lower 48 weather, we're finally transitioning out of winter into spring, but winter's not over. It still has one last sort of jab at us, especially east of the Rockies, coming up over the next week or so. So we'll talk about all of that and more in today's update. Good to have you along with me. Appreciate you tuning in. So here we go. We'll start off with a tweet here from Ben Knoll, our good buddy down there in New Zealand. And yeah, that's an aggressive look to the forecast there for the Atlantic hurricane season from the Euro. The ACE, that's the accumulated cyclone energy, already showing up at 120% of normal. And that is higher than the forecast issued in March for the last 2 years. So 2020, 2021 didn't show this high of a forecast this early. So this is the highest forecast of the last 3 seasons, including this one coming up, if that makes sense. And this is just a neat way to look at it with these different charts and the parameters as to why. Well, it's not seeing an El Nino, it's seeing the warmth in the Atlantic and just generally favorable conditions overall. So a busy hurricane season coming up according to the ECMWF, and we'll see. We'll get more data in terms of the upward motion, the precipitation anomalies, that kind of thing. About a month from now, maybe mid-April, is typically when that comes out, and might even have Ben Knoll come on and talk about it like we've done over the past couple of years. But this first look here, just the raw data, without digging too deep into it, it's just spitting out these numbers here. Pretty busy season looking likely so far for the Atlantic Basin. You know how things can change, but we have been trending in this direction, so I don't think that it's going to change. I think it's going to show a busy season coming up. And we can add to that, this variety of data from different people. Tyler Stanfield, I referenced him last week, and doing so again this week, that the La Niña that's in place, not going down without a fight. That's the headline there, and you can clearly see this in the animation that Tyler has put together. And I really like the fact that he outlined the Niño 3.4 area out there in the middle of the Pacific Ocean generally. Not quite the middle, but close to it. And you can see the push of these instability waves that come across here, the cold water getting pushed westward by the strong easterlies that are coming through here. We're getting a good easterly wind flow across here that's nice and stout, and that's keeping the warm pool shoved to the western Pacific and not allowing a lot of different mechanisms to take place that would foster an El Nino. That's the bottom line here. We're seeing a strong set of easterly winds and the La Niña holding on here, and it looks like those easterlies will prevail through the next couple of weeks. And we're getting into this period of time here, sort of the, how in space movies where somebody goes around the backside of the moon and they get into that communication blackout. Well, this is kind of like that in the spring predictability barrier. That's what we call this period of time where you've got the natural progression of the Earth to start changing. It's going through some changes here, seasonal changes. And the things that we're seeing, warming here, cooling there, are those because of the seasonal changes, or are those because of long-term changes that are going to stay put? For example, like a cold ENSO, that spring predictability barrier period, usually March, April, May, somewhere around there, is that window. We're starting to get into that window, kind of like that communications blackout period when in sci-fi movies that go around the backside of the moon. You know what I'm talking about, right? So that's what we're doing here in the spring. Not so sure if some of these things are related to the seasonal changes, like I said, or longer-term setups that are going to shape things like the upcoming hurricane season. That's where we can look to stuff like this, the subsurface version of this chart right here. if you took a slice, you can see earlier on, it looked like this large warm blob was going to come in and it expanded eastward, and it's going to chisel the La Nina away, but then it fizzled. And you can clearly see that in this animation, that large warm subsurface blob, if you will, it's not really a blob, these are just, it looks like a blob on the graphic. It's dissipated. There's just not much more to reinforce it. So you're getting more cold coming back into place over the eastern part of the Pacific, and the warm pool will stay intact over here almost always, but it's not breaking off and getting these Kelvin waves coming across with any degree of staying power. That's the thing here. But, we're eroding the La Nina. It's not going to be hopefully quite as strong, because even La Nina can have some negative impacts. It can force drought in some areas. It gives us usually busier hurricane season in the Atlantic. So it's moderated, but it looks like it's going to make a comeback, and we can see that reflected in even more guidance. I showed you this going all the way back to December. This is the CFS V2 forecast for that Niña 3.4 area. And again, that is for this area right here, referencing Tyler's tweet once again. That's the forecast for this box right here, this rectangle. That's the 3.4 region of the Pacific. That's what this is forecasting. And these are the different ensemble members here. None of them, a big fat zero, are even at neutral, which is right down the middle there. They're all below zero, which in this case is just an index. It's 0 degrees Celsius, or it's neutral. None of them are above that, and that's really telling. And we've seen, generally the progression here of the ensemble mean is to dip even further as we get deeper into spring, and then kind of leveling off throughout the summer, and then through the heart of the Atlantic hurricane season, which is roughly this period right through here. I'll just kind of draw an area in and then fill it in for you. This is the peak of the hurricane season right through here, this time period, August, September, and into October. But August, September, right through there, that's a solid La Nina if this were to come to pass exactly as the CFS V2 is indicating. Pretty close to 1.5 Celsius there. Wow, that's a solid La Nina. That coupled with going back to this map here, or going to it, haven't seen it. Well, this was an animation of it over here on Tyler's tweet. But the La Nina here, coupled with the warmer Atlantic, and it's cooled off a little bit. We've had some strong trades set up across the Atlantic as well. But by and large, the Atlantic is warmer than average here in this little horseshoe shape. And then the Western Atlantic, the Gulf, the Caribbean, warmer. The Pacific is colder, and that generally fosters this upward motion in the Atlantic over Africa, the Indian Ocean, rising motion there, sinking over the Pacific on a large scale, giving us the favorable phase of Atlantic hurricane activity that we have seen really these last several years, but very much so 2020, 2021, and it looks like again this year. And then pointing out too, again, this is the CFS V2. This is today. This is what it looked like back on January the 10th, and you can see it's just dipped. So it's gotten colder. It's trended colder. And we've been keeping track of this for several months. It's not changing the other way. It's actually trending colder, honestly. So this is a very interesting look. All of these pieces of the puzzle now starting to fit together, and we are less than 90 days away from the start of what could be another very busy hurricane season for the Atlantic Basin. And I know, look, just a slight small commentary for you here. I know that people don't want to hear that right now with what else is going on in the world. There is a tremendous amount of anxiety with all of these other outside forces. But believe me when I tell you, the hurricanes, weather, nature as a whole has no feelings. It doesn't understand. It's not a living thing. I mean, it is, but it isn't. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't care about our problems and what's going on. The hurricanes are not going to stop and say, those humans are going through enough right now. Let's just all stay out to sea and give them a break. That might happen, but it's not going to be because the hurricanes made a choice to spare us some anguish. So look at this. I try to always look at the positive as best I can. That we have the foresight months in advance to say, oh my goodness, it could be busy again. You know, you folks in Louisiana, I've seen tweets about it. They're like, nope, don't want to do it again, not going to do it again. Look, I get you. I fully understand. You know, I live in an area where we have hurricanes as well, southeast North Carolina. Now, I'm lucky. My house has not been dramatically impacted. We did have Florence 2018. We had Isaias 2020. Generally minor impacts. Florence is pretty major, though, of course, depending on where you live. But we're all in it together along the hurricane coast from Texas to Maine, the Caribbean, Mexico, you name it. And I understand the anxiety, but don't ignore what could be coming in place of saying, all right, let me just at least know that I have warning for when these could be coming, usually days in advance. That is a huge advantage. It is a huge advantage. So look at that as the science is on our side. We see the signs here, and you can take action early and just accept it. You know, yes, it could be a busy hurricane season again. Yes, I live in a vulnerable area. What do I need to do to get ready? And I will help you do that. And our collective team that works with us behind the scenes with graphics that we're going to develop, a new way to look at impacts we're going to be talking about coming up. So don't look at this as more bad news. We're not doom and gloom here. It's just the facts. And the facts are it could be a busy hurricane season again, and I want to help you be ready for it as best I can. All right? All right. So the Gulf of Mexico, now that it's March, sun angle is increasing, and with that, the incoming solar radiation, or what we call insolation for short. And there's your 26 Celsius isotherm. It never, ever got sort of shrunk down into the Caribbean. It's always stayed in the Gulf this year. Very warm Gulf of Mexico relative to average. Spring break is upon us. Some areas are having it now, and it goes right on through April. It's just weird how that's like spring break for colleges, high schools, whatever, spans many weeks. It's very strange. So people will be visiting some of the more favored locations like South Florida, maybe the Panhandle. And speaking of the Panhandle, just another quick aside, look at the effects there from Michael now several years later with the terrible wildfire outbreak in and around the Bay County area. Homes lost. I haven't read that there's been any fatalities, hopefully none, but that shows you that the imprint of these hurricanes goes on with the massive deforestation, if you will, the calamity there in the forest region in and around the Panhandle of Florida all the way up into southwest Georgia. These hurricanes last long after they're gone. So just, I didn't want to let that go unnoticed. You know, I saw that in the headlines there in the Bay County area. Really sad to see that. People rebuilding after Michael to lose their homes in those wildfires. Anyhow, the Gulf continues to get warmer. Depending on where you are, the shelf water's still a little chilly, but the sun doing its thing, adding warmth every single day that we go by. And make no mistake, I talk about this often, and let's go back to the broader picture here. Gulf is basically 99%, all of it, warmer than average. You get that big Bermuda high sitting off the east coast, roughly like that. These cold fronts and troughs dipping in from Canada, coming up and over the ridge out here in the west, and troughing in the nation's midsection or the east, and you're going to get a big battle zone in between, and that's where your severe weather threats are going to be. We've already had, you know, the terrible outbreak there. Small outbreak, but significant nonetheless in Iowa with loss of life. I think we're just getting started. This warm Gulf, the pattern overall of the energy dropping in from Canada, going to be a busy season for severe weather, and we're going to take a look at that as well on these updates. And then in person out there, probably late April into May, going to make an expedition somewhere out here in the heart of Tornado Alley to put our technology to work out there. I've talked about it some. I'll talk about it again at a later date. All right, off the East Coast, spring break out here for some of you, maybe. I don't know. Again, it's weird how many weeks that lasts. Too cold for spring break beach activity here in the mid-Atlantic and New England. You can just forget about it. Still a little chilly, too, off of my area, the Carolinas. But it is warming up. It's getting there. Another 30 days, and water temperatures will definitely be rebounding here. Still really interesting, going back to this map, off the East Coast, this is remarkable. Let me just zoom in. Unbelievable. It really, really is how warm the water is right there relative to average, butting right up against the Outer Banks of North Carolina. The Gulf Stream, This is ridiculous. I mean, all right, and this is triggering my, okay, I've talked about it enough. I'm going to get an expert on, probably do a Hurricane U, one of those little educational episodes. Maybe Michael Lowry. If he can't do it, then he can direct me to somebody who can. What's going on here? Why is the Gulf Stream 3, 4, 5 Celsius, and that's generous there. It's probably warmer than that. It's off the scale. Look, there's the scale right there. 5 degrees Celsius is that very dark, almost black color, and it's probably off the scale because they don't have a 6 Celsius. What is causing that? That's going to be problematic later on in the year for rainfall events, fronts that get stalled. Tropical cyclones could be attracted to that. That spells trouble. So I want to talk to somebody and figure out what's up with that. All right. At least for now, weather-wise, not a lot to worry about. Nice visible animation courtesy of Tropical Tidbits. Couple things to point out for you here. You got your low-level easterlies coming across a good deal of the Atlantic, but in the upper levels you can see the strong south to west-southwest winds. Lots of westerlies in the atmosphere right now, even over here. And that's why we don't have tropical cyclones, at least one of the reasons, during this time of year, even though water temperatures throughout a good deal of this area, most of it, are warm enough. It's not just warm water. You got to have relaxed wind shear values so that thunderstorms can grow vertically, and all of this westerly wind all through here just isn't going to cut it. There's a lot of dry air. The moisture content isn't there yet in the mid-levels of the atmosphere especially, and there's not very many impulses, and we can see that on this satellite picture. This is a satellite picture. It's just a different version of what we're used to seeing. This shows vorticity. The energy is up here in the high latitudes. Nothing to speak of down in the lower latitudes. A few impulses there in the lower latitudes, but nothing significant. This will change, as you know. This will change. And I would say, I mean, we're talking less than 90 days until the start of the season. I think less than 60 days out, by the time we get to around mid-May, we're going to have to start watching this area through here, and then probably somewhere off the southeast coast. These are your Genesis areas early, and maybe even in the Gulf, considering how warm it is. Wouldn't surprise me at all to see the string of preseason development continue in 2022. So we'll watch. This will be one of the key puzzle pieces right here. You'll be able to see these areas start to develop. You get that energy that blossoms, and then we see it as it becomes circular and compact, bundling that energy. No such thing right now, but I think by the time we get even to mid-May, like I said, a little over 2 months from now, I bet we start seeing some stuff come together here. Maybe a monsoon trough kind of deal sets up out of the Pacific. Something to watch for. We're getting closer and closer to it. All right, winter not quite done yet. One more bout of really cold weather. I'll show you that coming up in just a moment. For today, however, fairly calm weather map overall. A few advisories. Well, let's use a color that stands out, shall we? A few advisories up here in the Rockies and parts of the upper Midwest there, the border states, if you will. Nothing crazy, nothing outrageous. No major winter storms coming through. Little bit for the upper peninsula of Michigan there, or a majority of the, actually that's the UP, that's just the peninsula, sorry. Got to get my geography right. A few flood advisories up here along parts of, again, the border states, really, the border regions of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire. Well, not quite New Hampshire, or, yeah. No, not New Hampshire, sorry. I have to look and see what I'm looking at here. What do these mean, by the way? What are these greens and everything? Well, those are your flood advisories. And again, if you ever want to know, well, what is that for? Well, just click on it. You click on the map and it tells you there's a flood watch. So I guess there's some precip coming through. You can read all about it. It's 39 degrees up there. Yes, you can have flooding even when it's cold. And then some other advisories coming off the lakes here. Flood warning, flood advisory, hydrologic outlook. Really neat interactive map here at weather.gov. If you ever want to know what these different greens and other colors mean, they're all right here. You can click on them and you get the information from your local weather service office. All right? All right, so looking ahead, well, this is part of the reason why we're having some flooding issues up here in parts of the Northeast. A storm system is moving through today. Some severe weather, we'll look at that in a moment, for the areas farther south and west. But this is a pretty dynamic system. moving across today and bringing some snow, but first the rain, but then some heavier snows on the back end, perhaps, as cold air drains in. Again, winter's not quite over just yet. That front moves off out into the Atlantic, the Canadian Maritimes, etc., and generally a calmer pattern until about midweek, and then another storm system takes shape, moves off out into the Atlantic, more snow for the Rockies and parts of the plains, and then a pretty solid push towards Friday, a very cold air here. You can see these, basically these lower heights dipping in, the trough digging in, and very cold air pouring out of Canada. One more time that we're going to do it. It's going to generate a pretty good storm here for the east. And we'll have to watch this to see if it can really crank up there and give us kind of one last hurrah. That's pretty potent looking. And then, snow all the way down into the Appalachians here. Maybe some late season skiing if they haven't already closed up shop at Beach and Sugar and Hawks Nest and Seven Devils if they're still in operation. Hopefully they are. Maybe some severe weather out ahead of this. Again, this is coming up Friday into Saturday. Very windy, lots of isobars in here. You see that? So a pretty potent storm coming up for the weekend, and then that pushes through with cold air behind it into Saturday night into Sunday. And look at that northwest flow back here. Wow, very strong winds coming in. One last Arctic push, if you will, Canadian Arctic air, whatever, and then winter should gracefully exit, I hope. And then look, that high slides offshore. There it is out there off the chart. And the return flow, boom, another storm system starts setting up at more than a week out. So a pretty active weather pattern overall, but no blockbuster, like, headline-making major storms that we can see yet. But the one for this coming weekend has a little bit of potential to be a bit of a troublemaker. So pay attention to that, especially with the snow. It could be heavier and wetter because we are getting later into the season. It won't be as cold. And so the snow will have a little bit more moisture content with it. So keep an eye on that. All right? All right, so one more thing before I let you go here, head out. Convective outlook. That's it. This is spring severe weather season. One general area of thunderstorms in northern Arizona. Just scattered, random thunderstorms. Some cold air aloft out there, some instability. The greater concentration of severe weather is in this yellow area today. Through parts of the Appalachians up to the Mid-Atlantic region, including the greater D.C. area, Baltimore. So you guys pay attention to that. This is the categorical, the tornado risk, very small, thank goodness, in a very small area. It's a low risk in a small geographic area. Both of those are good things. And then the wind threat, fairly substantial there over a wide swath. And, good, no hail to really worry about, less than 5%. All areas. That is today. If we move out to tomorrow, it's generally confined to the southern tier states, and finally by Wednesday, just generally again in the southeast with random scattered thunderstorms, garden variety, no big issues. And then the day 4 through 8 outlook, not too much right now, but as we get towards April, this will start to really light up, and then we're going to have our attention focused on this area through here, probably later in April, and then all of the month of May. With a big project we're going to do out there in the heart of Tornado Alley using our hurricane technology. All right, we are on the Twitter and the Facebook and the YouTubes, all of that good stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And really, hit that notification. It's more important now than ever. If you want to know, hey, when is Mark putting up a new video? It's great to have you subscribe. That's awesome. We love to see those numbers go up. I do appreciate it, but if you want to be alerted when I put up a video, you got to tell YouTube to tell you. So be sure to do that, especially as we get closer to hurricane season. We do a lot of live coverage, and I put these videos up, or I might take a new Hurricane Highway episode and make it public. You want to know when that happens, so be notified. All right, and of course we are supported by our awesome family there on Patreon. People all around the world, patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. We're active on Discord now, so jump in and check that out. Good time to do it. We're getting ready to print our new tracking maps for 2022. I'll be sending those out probably sometime in April to our tier $25 level and up. and making those available for purchase as well. A few dozen of them anyway on social media. I always print a few extras for that, and I think that's about it. All right, so again, the hurricane season news, not what you want, I'm sure, like I said, with everything else going on, but look, we've done it, we've been through it. What was happening 2 years ago, what we were getting ready to face. We had a hard hurricane season. I won't say we got through it, because some people didn't. Some people it was devastating. But it's always going to come back around, and again, the science is on our side, and instead of just being full of angst and anxiety, a related word, right? Look at it as an advantage. Seriously, try to turn it around. Positive mental attitude is the key to a lot of this. We're going to keep you informed, without hype, without BS, and just get you ready. And then when they come, we'll cover it with our legendary coverage. That's a good tagline, I think. Legendary coverage. How about that? Maybe I just came up with something there. You guys have a great rest of your week. As always, I do appreciate you tuning in to the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. By the way, before I go, let me come back on one more time. A quick shout out to a Hoggard High School student, Gleb. His birthday's coming up. Yes, that's the name. I said it right, hopefully. I believe it is Wednesday, right here in Wilmington. A fan of what we do here on YouTube, so happy birthday to you, Gleb. Coming up this Wednesday. Happy birthday to you. Be safe out there, all right? Especially here in Wilmington in the traffic. Yuck. If you drive. I don't know how old he is, but it's all good. Happy birthday to you, sir. All right. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Mark Sudduth. I'll talk to you again next Monday.